Ladies and gentlemen, Sony's PlayStation 5 console is going from strength to strength, and there is tons of good news if you are a Sony fan. Later this year, of course, we're expecting Sony to make a full announcement regarding their plans for the PlayStation 5 Pro. It will be very interesting to see the pricing as well as the marketing strategy for the PS5 Pro, and we're going to talk more about that system in a moment because I've been hearing some rumours regarding the release schedule and announcements and that type of thing. But I also want to throw in some other stuff, and that concerns Indiana Jones. Now, I'm sure you know that Indiana Jones in the Great Circle is one of the biggest games that is upcoming on the Xbox platform, and of course the PC as well, as it's going to be getting a simultaneous release. Honestly, I was a little skeptical about this game when I was first hearing about it, because, well, frankly at this point I'm a little jaded for many titles, so I wanted to wait until I saw some actual gameplay, and the trailers have really painted this game to be pretty exciting, but it seems that the PS5 is also going to be getting a port of this game as well. Nat the Hate, who has had a really good track record, has said that we may actually see this title launch in the first half of next year, and also Chess Gordon over at Windows Central has said essentially that there is a not small chance that Indiana Jones is going to be getting a port as well. Now, I have to say that if this is the case, one of the really big reasons for this, quite frankly, could be pressure from Disney. Basically, they obviously own the license for Indiana Jones, and it's very possible that they've said, hey, we don't mind some kind of like exclusive window for the Xbox version, but we do want this to also be released on the PlayStation as well, because of course, we want sales targets to be met because obviously, well, they want money. So I can certainly understand that from that perspective. So it's possible that Phil Spencer and his team have been getting a lot of pressure. With that said, there are so many rumours at the moment that tons of other Xbox games are going to be ported to the PS5. I don't know how much validity there is in some of these rumours. Like there were rumours that Forza is going to happen, and then of course those got shut down, and who knows. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens, and also the marketing spin that Microsoft puts on this. As far as I understand, the next generation Xbox console is still in development, and I mean, Microsoft themselves have said that there is still a console in development. How that looks and how Microsoft markets it, I'll probably speculate more on that in another video, but it's going to be very interesting to see how Microsoft spins that, and that's to put it mildly. Now, it's quite interesting because someone who hasn't actually reached out to me before actually DM'd me and was giving me some information. Now, honestly, when it comes to sources that haven't said much to me before, I am a little bit skeptical. But interestingly, this person did give me the information before it was being widely distributed. Now, I will say, as with any rumor, until it actually is announced, do not take it, verbatim. It's very possible that these are just rumors, that it is not going to happen. And certainly we have had, things that just didn't turn out to be true, or plans change, or whatever. So I will be interested to see whether this actually occurs or not. But as I said, I had someone who did tell me that Microsoft are going to be porting this game to the PS5. Nate, if memory serves, said it's going to be in the first half. The person that I was speaking to told me it's going to be within the first 4 months, assuming there's not a delay. I mean, it's very possible even the Xbox version could be delayed. That's not a rumor, by the way, or saying there's something wrong with the development. I'm just saying I'm at that point where until the product is actually released and I can play it, I just kind of like, oh, that's a nice release date. I'm sure that's going to happen, because there are so many games that have gotten delayed, because, we need more time to polish it. And frankly, I'm okay with that. Like, if a game needs to be delayed 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, what have you, I'm okay. I would much rather the game gets delayed and we actually get to play a version of the title that doesn't constantly crash, there's not massive performance issues, that there's not huge bugs. We all saw what happened with titles that were kind of like pushed out, like Cyberpunk. So again, I would much rather a game get delayed if necessary. There are so many games out at the moment. It's like, okay, like, They quite literally could not be a game released for like 6 months or 12 months even. I still wouldn't get through my back catalogue. I understand that not everyone feels like that, and if you don't, then I totally understand. But for me personally, I would much rather a game be delayed if necessary. Now let's move on to the PS5 Pro and the announcement. So at this point, I've had multiple people tell me that September is almost a certain bet that Sony will be announcing the machine. Furthermore, of course, November does seem to be the date that Sony will be actually launching the system. Now, if you look historically at, let's say, the release of the original PS5 as well as the PS4 Pro and so on, November is a very consistent month that, well, basically Sony targets. And of course, that's for good reason, for example, Christmas. With that said, there are still some people who do believe that the PS5 Pro doesn't exist, and frankly, I don't know why at this point. Not only have Sony, of course, released the Pro previously in the form of the PS4 Pro, but there are so many leaks at this point that the system is a genuine thing. We've had Digital Foundry that have leaked the fact that they've seen the development documents. You've had Insider Gaming, you've had NXG. I've personally seen stuff, I've spoken to people, like, you know, and others certainly have as well. Like, this system does exist. The documents are quite literally in the Sony development portal. Now, at one point or another, not everything was listed. That's all I'll say. Like, there was certainly a lot of ambiguity as to some of the capabilities of the machine, but now more and more information is being provided to developers. And of course, we are at that stage where developers now are essentially, you know, going to be required to code a PS5 Pro version, which is going to be essentially leveraging at least some elements of the machine. It is worth noting that this is not a next generation console. This is not the same thing as a PS6. So basically, this is going to be like for someone who either hasn't yet jumped into the Sony ecosystem, but let's say they want to play like Wolverine or something like that with the best quality visuals, then obviously that would be the system perhaps they would go for. Another reason is they want the best quality PSVR, but another big one is that you just simply have a relevant screen, in other words 4K, you know, high refresh rate, whatever, HDR, blah blah blah, and ideally variable refresh rate is like one of the big keys here, and you essentially want the best visuals possible out of the machine. You already own the base model, but you do want to try to like just essentially stay in the Sony ecosystem and have the best quality possible. And frankly, I think the machine is going to carve out a niche. It's obviously not going to sell as well as the base model console. I say obviously, I mean maybe I'm going to be proven wrong. It's going to be very interesting to see what Sony's marketing and pricing strategy is. They could cut the price of the base machine and maybe it goes down like $100 or something. The problem is the bill of materials for the PS5 as well as the Xbox as well, to be fair, haven't really been, they just haven't gone down as much as Sony or Microsoft, for that matter, predicted. And there are several reasons for this. The price of DRAM obviously hasn't come down much because of, like, well, just everything that's going on in the industry. That could also, that same criticism could also be levered at the APU manufacturing costs, because obviously TSMC haven't, like, gone down significantly. There are also a lot of costs associated with like reducing the size of the actual processor more, because if you start going to like 4 or 5 nm or what have you, like if you look historically at, let's pick on the PS3 or the Xbox 360 or what have you, just go to Wikipedia and look at the different models of the systems and you can kind of see like, oh look, the Xbox 360 launched in, when was it, like, was it November 2005? I think it's November 2005. Anyway, you kind of like, oh look, another model got released this point, another model got released here, another model, and you can see that there's massive differences. Like, they were actually like shrinking the chips themselves significantly in between, and that's one of the reasons they managed to reduce the cost of the system, because obviously not only is the chip itself smaller, but you have a host of other benefits with that. It's going to suck down less power, so you don't need, you know, such such beefy cooling systems and VRMs and blah blah blah. So it's going to be extremely interesting to see how the PS5 Pro is priced. I wouldn't be surprised if it is more expensive than the base model console is right now, but honestly, I don't know. The pricing information, I've not heard anything solid, just a lot of speculation. And speculation is not the same thing as a legitimate piece of information from Sony. But one last thing I want to leave you guys with, and it's actually really good news for Intel. And yeah, I know CPUs like the, the 285 or the 9950 X3D or what have you, or perhaps some of the more exciting processors, because obviously they represent the pinnacle, the flagship performance. But one, not every PC gamer can afford that, and two, you don't really need that level of performance for many games. And actually, it's some really good news for Arrow Lake. Raichu, or one Raichu on Twitter, states we're going to see the U3 205 or 215. The name possibly hasn't been decided yet. It's going to be an 8-core Ultra 3. It is much more powerful than the i3 14th generation processors. Basically, this is going to be the equivalent of the i3 for Arrow Lake, and there were some rumors that Arrow Lake was not going to be getting the equivalent of i3, but it does seem like that is actually not going to happen anymore, and Intel will be releasing that. Unfortunately, the core configuration, at least so far, that I've seen anyway, hasn't been announced. So it could be a 4/4 configuration, it could be like a 2+6 or whatever. But again, even the little cores, the E cores on Arrow Lake are really performant. So I think this is going to still be more than enough to play a lot of games. Obviously we are at that point now where games like Black Myth, Final Fantasy 16, the demo's out, and I think it's like an 8600 or something like that is the minimum for the CPU. So we are starting to get up in the core and thread count, as well as, games. Basically the minimum is starting to go up, and it's not really surprising because, again, we're at that point where developers are squarely aiming at creating games as like, for the PS5 level of CPU performance of the Xbox Series consoles. So I think that that's just going to happen. I think like the minimum specs for a lot of stuff is going to start going up a little bit for the PC. I think the minimum GPU for the Final Fantasy demo was like an RX 5700-ish. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens actually for the CPUs, like I said previously. But anyway guys, I think that's just about it for this particular video. If you've enjoyed it, well, it's YouTube, you know what to do. I'll see you soon. Take care of yourselves. Bye for now.